You never expect the knife in your back to come from the hands you once held the tightest. I raised my daughter with everything I had, love, patience, sacrifice. I wasn't rich, but I worked hard, saved smart, and when she found the man she wanted to marry, I didn't ask questions. I just gave my blessing, gave my time, gave my money. When they needed help buying their first home, I was there with the down payment. I co-signed the mortgage. I paid the bills when they couldn't. Every brick of that house stood on. A foundation I helped build, not for recognition, not for control, but out of pure love. To me, helping my daughter start her life was an honor. I'd spent decades building stability so that she would never feel the fear I once felt of losing everything, of having no one. Every dollar I gave wasn't just money. It was trust. It was belief in her future. I supported them through job, changes, their first baby, and even family emergencies. Quietly, humbly, because that's what parents do, right? You give so your children can stand taller. Our relationship had always been close. She used to call me every day. We laughed over coffee, cried through hard times, and celebrated every small victory together. So when she got married, I welcomed her husband with open arms. I treated him like a son. Never once did I imagine that one day I'd be standing outside their front door, the same door my money helped pay for, only to be told I wasn't welcome. But that moment hadn't happened yet. Not in this calm before the storm. Back then, I still believed love and loyalty meant something. I still thought what I gave would always be met with gratitude. I didn't realize I was planting seeds in a garden someone else would one day try to fence me out of. The unspoken tension grows. It didn't happen overnight. Disrespect rarely knocks. It seeps in through the cracks, slow and silent, until one day you're drowning in it. At first, I brushed it off. The long silences, the cold glances from my son-in-law, the way he would sigh when I offered advice, or disappear into another room when I visited. Maybe he just wasn't the affectionate type, I thought. Maybe he was adjusting to married life. After all, I didn't raise him. I had to give him the benefit of the doubt, didn't I? But deep down, I felt it. A shift. A distance growing between me and my daughter, like someone was pulling her away, string by string. She stopped calling as often. Our once long heart-to-heart conversations turned into rushed check-ins. And when I'd come over to help with the baby, he'd make comments like, "We've got it handled," or, "Did she really need help again?" Not cruel, not loud, just ... dismissive. Subtle enough to ignore, but sharp enough to sting. Still, I kept showing up. I kept giving. Groceries, utility bills, even paying for their broken water heater when they didn't have the cash. I told myself I was imagining things, that maybe it was me being too sensitive. But every time I left their house, I carried an invisible weight, a heaviness in my chest that whispered, "You don't belong here anymore." And my daughter, she never said anything, never stood up, never pulled me aside to ask how I was feeling. It was as if she couldn't see the growing wall between us. Or maybe she didn't want to. That was the part that hurt most, not the son-in-law's pride, but her silence, her quiet agreement, her shrinking presence in my life. I thought love was enough. I thought history mattered. But something was shifting behind those smiles and polite nods, and deep in my gut, I knew something was coming. Something big. The party that changed everything. The invitation never came. But I didn't think much of it at first. Families don't need formalities. Birthdays, anniversaries, cookouts we'd always just known. I had been there for every milestone in my daughter's life, from her first breath to her wedding day. So when I heard there was a party being thrown at their house, the same house I helped pay for, I assumed, without question, that I'd be there too. Why wouldn't I be? It was a warm Saturday afternoon when I decided to stop by. I dressed nicely, picked up a bottle of wine, her favorite, the same one we used to share during our late-night talks. My heart was light. I imagined walking in, hearing the laughter, hugging my grandbaby, seeing her smile when she spotted me in the crowd. That image stayed in my head, right up until the moment the door opened out. It wasn't my daughter who answered. It was him, my son-in-law. He looked surprised to see me, like I'd crashed a secret meeting. Behind him, I could hear music playing, people laughing, the clinking of glasses. The party was in full swing. "Oh," he said flatly, barely masking the irritation. In his voice, "You weren't invited to this party." I blinked, thinking I'd misheard. "Excuse me?" He didn't flinch. No apology, no discomfort, just a smug, dismissive shrug. "This is more of a friends thing. We didn't think it was necessary to have family." The word dropped like a brick. I stood there frozen, bottle still in my hand, heartbeat in my ears. Behind him, I saw familiar faces, relatives, neighbors, even people I had introduced them to. But I, the parent who made that house possible, who supported them every step of the way, I was the one on the doorstep. Unwanted, uninvited, unimportant. What shattered me wasn't just the rejection. It was that she saw it happen. My daughter, standing a few feet behind him, holding a drink, pretending not to look. She didn't say a word. She didn't call out, rush to the door, or tell him to stop. Her silence was louder than anything he could have said. It screamed, "I chose him. Not you. I didn't argue. I didn't plead." I simply nodded, turned around, and walked away. But something inside me changed that day. That walk back to my car felt longer than any journey I'd ever taken. My hands trembled. My chest ached not from anger, but from the kind of heartbreak only a parent can know. The betrayal wasn't loud. It was quiet, casual, as if I'd been erased from their lives one indifferent moment at a time. And yet, as I started the engine and looked back at that house, my daughter's house, one thought echoed louder than the pain. They forgot who paid the price for that celebration. But I hadn't, and I still held the receipt. Betrayal with a smile. The days after the party were a blur. I didn't sleep much. I'd wake up in the middle of the night and just sit there staring at the ceiling, replaying that moment on the porch like a broken tape. His voice, sharp and cold. My daughter's eyes averted. That glass of wine in her hand, the one I had brought to share. And the way she just stood there, pretending I wasn't even real. You never expect to be erased by the people you raised. But that's what betrayal does. It doesn't always come with shouting or slammed doors. Sometimes it arrives dressed in politeness and sealed with a fake smile. And that's exactly how it had been with my son-in-law from the start. He never yelled, never insulted me directly. But he was a master of subtle digs, backhanded compliments, and carefully timed silences. Every time I helped, he'd say things like, "We'll pay you back someday," when we're really on our feet. Or, "I guess that's just what older generations do, huh?" Always trying to stay involved. He made kindness feel like intrusion and generosity feel like control. And all the while, my daughter just smiled nervously, like she was stuck between two worlds, but never once did she pull me aside to say, "I've got your back." I had convinced myself it would pass, that maybe I was just being too sensitive, that surely blood runs thicker than water, and my daughter would never forget everything I had done. But after that party, I stopped lying to myself. It was clear. I wasn't just unwanted. I was an inconvenience. A reminder of the roots they were trying to pretend didn't exist, and it stung even more because I had never asked for anything in return, never expected payback, never held the money over their heads. I just gave. Month after month, I helped cover the mortgage, the utilities, repairs, groceries during the pandemic, even helped with childcare when they couldn't afford a nanny. I poured years of my life, my energy, and my savings into making sure they were okay. And now they wanted me to disappear quietly. Smiling, laughing, and dancing in the house, I helped keep afloat while I stood outside like a stranger. The betrayal wasn't just the party. It was everything leading up to it. Every moment of unspoken disrespect, every phone call that never came, every holiday where I was conveniently forgotten or things were too busy. It was the slow fading of a relationship I once thought was unbreakable. My daughter didn't cut me off with a sword. She did it with silence, with avoidance, with that one moment on the porch where she chose comfort over loyalty. I had given so much of myself that I didn't even realize. I was being bled dry until I was standing at rock bottom, holding a wine bottle like it was a reminder of everything I'd lost. But in that darkness came clarity. I wasn't angry. I wasn't vengeful. I was done excusing their behavior, done financing their comfort while they erased my presence. I realized something important. I still had one last card to play, one final move they never saw coming, because while they had forgotten everything I gave, I had not. And the mortgage papers, the ones they took for granted, still in my name. They'd smiled at me like I was irrelevant, but they forgot. Irrelevant people don't hold the deed. The power move, canceling the mortgage. Some decisions don't come from anger. They come from clarity. From the moment you finally see people for who they really are and realize just how long you've let them get away with it. I sat at my kitchen table that morning, the sunlight pouring through the blinds like it always had, but something in me felt different. No more confusion, no more pain, just a quiet realization that I was done playing the part of the silent provider, done being the invisible foundation they walked on, never bothering to look down. And that's when I remembered something they didn't, something they had forgotten long ago. The mortgage, that house they were living in so comfortably, the backyard barbecues, the nursery I helped paint, the remodeled kitchen they loved to show off was only possible because I had co-signed the loan. Not just co-signed, I was the primary. The mortgage, legally, was under my name. They had always said they'd take over the payments eventually, but eventually never came, so I kept paying. Quietly, consistently, month after month, to keep a roof over their heads. And in return, I was told not to show up at a party I helped fund, in the very house I helped them own. That morning, I called my lawyer, not out of revenge, but out of wisdom, out of a need to reclaim my dignity. I explained the situation in full. He listened, calmly, professionally, and said something that struck a chord. You're not doing anything wrong. You're just withdrawing your consent to be used. With his help, I reviewed the mortgage contract. The details were clear. I was well within my rights to pull the financial plug. They had defaulted on our agreement, not in writing, but in principle. And so we initiated the process. I stopped the payments, informed the bank, notified my daughter through certified mail that I would no longer be financially responsible for the property. It wasn't dramatic. It wasn't loud. It was methodical, legal, final. I didn't expect a response right away. But when it came, it was exactly what I had predicted. Panic. Calls. Texts. Voicemails. All from her. None from him. Suddenly, I wasn't invisible anymore. I was the oxygen they had taken for granted, and now they couldn't breathe. Why would you do this to us? She cried in one voicemail. What about the baby? What about the family? The bank says we're going to lose the house. But here's the thing, they did this to themselves. I never raised my voice. I never got emotional. I simply responded with a message I had written and rewritten in my head 1,000 times over. You made it clear I wasn't welcome in your home, so now I won't be paying for it. Simple, clean, undeniable. What followed was a whirlwind of apologies. Too little, too late. Suddenly, I was being called Dad again. Suddenly, I was being told how much they loved me. But it wasn't love. It was fear. The kind of fear that sets in when the ATM you've been using finally spits out declined. Let me be clear. I didn't want them to suffer. I didn't want them homeless. But I did want them to finally understand the value of respect. And unfortunately, for some people, it takes a financial earthquake to shake them awake. You see, money isn't the real issue in stories like these. It's gratitude. It's honor. It's the idea that when someone builds a bridge for you, you don't burn it behind their back. I had spent years helping them build a life, and in return, I got locked out of the house I helped pay for emotionally and literally. So I took back control. Not to punish, but to protect myself. And as I sat in my quiet home, sipping my coffee weeks later, while they scrambled to refinance the mortgage or risk losing everything, I didn't feel guilt. I felt peace. For the first time in years, I had finally put myself first. And it felt right. The fallout, silence, regret, and karma. The moment I stopped paying the mortgage, the silence was deafening. For days, no calls, no messages, just an empty phone and a quiet house. I wasn't sure if it was relief or resentment on their end, but I welcomed the space to breathe and reflect. Eventually, the messages came, hurried apologies, frantic pleas, desperate promises. My daughter's voice cracked as she called, begging me to reconsider. She said things like, "We didn't mean to hurt you, and we just got caught up in everything." But I knew it wasn't just about that one party or the missed invitations. It was the years of neglect disguised as busy lives, the subtle dismissals, the cold shoulders. Her husband never reached out. Not once. His silence was louder than any apology could have been. It was in those quiet moments that karma started to unfold. They faced the reality of their choices, missed mortgage payments, mounting debt, the looming threat of foreclosure. The life they had taken for granted began to crumble around them. And while I didn't wish failure on anyone, I saw the consequences as a hard but necessary lesson. At first, I wrestled with guilt. Was I too harsh? Could I have done more? But then I reminded myself of the countless times I had been overlooked, unappreciated, and treated like a stranger in my own daughter's home. Love doesn't mean allowing yourself to be walked over. It means knowing when to stand up and protect your dignity. Over time, the silence between us has softened, but hasn't disappeared. I've learned that some wounds take longer to heal, and some bridges take longer to rebuild. What's important is that I no longer lose myself trying to hold on to people who don't value me. This experience taught me a vital truth. Respect is earned, not given. And sometimes, the hardest thing we can do for those we love is to set boundaries, even if it means letting go. The lesson: don't fund disrespect. Sometimes the hardest lessons come from those we love the most. I learned this the painful way, that no amount of money, no act of kindness should come at the cost of your dignity. Supporting my daughter and her husband financially felt like the right thing to do. After all, family means helping each other. But what I didn't realize was that love isn't enough when respect is missing. I gave without hesitation. I trusted. I believed that family ties would protect me from betrayal. But when the son-in-law told me, "You weren't invited to this party," it shattered something deep inside me. The real heartbreak wasn't just being excluded. It was the cold realization that I was being used and taken for granted. Mortgage I helped pay was more than just a house. It was a symbol of the trust and support I had given. When I canceled those payments, It wasn't about revenge. It was about reclaiming my worth and sending a clear message. Love is not permission to disrespect or dismiss. This experience taught me something crucial. Never fund disrespect. Whether it's money, time, or emotional energy, you must protect yourself. Boundaries aren't about punishment. They're about self-respect. If someone values you, they'll show it in words and actions. If they don't, no amount of generosity will change that. Looking back, I realize how important it is to recognize when your kindness is being exploited. It's okay to say no. It's okay to step back. Sometimes letting go is the bravest form of love, not just for them, but for yourself. If there's one thing I want others to take away from my story, it's this: you deserve to be treated with respect, always. No gift, no mortgage, no sacrifice should ever make you feel invisible or unwanted. Protect your heart, your dignity, and your future, because in the end, that's the true legacy we leave behind.